Happy Hawkscast podcast day to everyone out there. Gentlemen, how's it going today?
Fantastic.
Would you say it's 2-0 fantastic?
It feels like an undefeated fantastic.
The only sad thing about our 2-0 record right now is not the way that we won it, but the fact that there are two other teams in the NFC West that are also 2-0, which means that we're actually in third place technically. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, you know, it's early. We've only played AFC teams, which is kind of weird to think about, but, you know, here we are.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, Ross is excited. I can feel it.
I'm excited. I'm building. I'm pacing. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
We're 1/8 through this marathon. That's like, what, 3-4 miles into an actual marathon?
Yeah, we get our first left turn on 5th Street.
I mean, if you think about it in the opposite way, 1 year ago we were 0-2, 2 games on the road, 0-2, pretty much left for dead because so few teams can make the playoffs after an 0-2 start.
It's true.
True. But, I mean, the Seahawks don't really... Conventional knowledge generally doesn't apply to a Pete Carroll, John Schneider team, right?
I think that's fair. Right?
Yeah. I mean, like, they break so many, common knowledge type things all the time, right? I mean, we're sitting in a base defense all the time here in 2019.
Yeah, for those of you that were watching that game and following on Twitter, there are a lot of comments. Shout out to Matty F. Brown. He was talking about it. He was talking about how good that was. Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think that they have more trust in saying, like, you know what, we trust our 3 linebackers more than a nickel corner that we could bring in at this time.
Yeah, I mean, and by the second game, I thought they were, once they brought, what's his name back?
Jamal
back, I thought they'd be more comfortable, but I think they are comfortable with it, but I just think like they feel like, I think that I have this idea, like this image in my mind where like having a coaches meeting and somebody just brought up this idea like, well, don't we want our 11 best guys on the field all the time? And somebody's like, you know what, that makes a lot of sense.
It kind of on the flip side, you would say, hey, our best offensive players are going to be the quarterback, three wide receivers, a tight end, and a running back, not let's go 2 tight end with a fullback, or let's go 1 tight end, jumbo package, 3 tight ends, and a fullback. Like that's that unconventional wisdom that you were talking about, Ross, that John and Pete do stuff. They build a roster that is unlike any other in the NFL.
For sure.
But real quick, let's talk about that win. I predicted a loss. I was happily surprised. What about you guys?
I mean, I predicted the win. I wasn't like amazingly confident with it, but I also never. It's not hindsight. I actually wrote somewhere. I was like, I don't really understand like why everybody's so afraid of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't think they're a more talented team this year than us, and they're probably not. I mean, of course, there's the asterisk where, Ben Roethlisberger actually had a real injury apparently this time.
That was a shock. I definitely did not expect that once the second quarter was winding down and Ben's grabbing his elbow after no one touches him, like, oh, he's totally faking it. He's going to come back after the half and come out, and
I thought he'd come back in the 4th quarter. He's done that before. He's come out, but not for like a series or even. He's come out. He's like left the game for quarters before. So I thought like 4th quarter when they're down, he's going to come back and try to engineer the comeback. And I said, oh, that dude might be properly hurt. And apparently he's having something equivalent to the Tommy John surgery. So I feel like I owe him an apology on some level, but at the same level, it's a little bit like the boy who called wolf kind of thing. Like, if you lie 5 times and the 6th time you lie, do people really? So the 6th time it's the truth. Do people really owe you the apology?
Right. I mean, Zeb, I think you predicted a win too. I was the only one that predicted a loss. What was your take after that game ended?
I suppose it went about as good as I could have expected. I predicted a win, and I don't remember the score, but I'm sure I predicted a double-digit score just because that's the way I do things. But I think I expected a really, a close game, a hard-fought game. I didn't expect those guys to give us anything but their best, and glad we got the victory.
Yeah, I would definitely say that I predicted a loss. I didn't have a lot of confidence. Kind of like to the point you're talking about is it's mostly the stuff that had nothing to do with the field. Literally, like, that's a garbage field that the Seahawks had to play on. But it's about a home game for Pittsburgh, an away game for Seattle. Pittsburgh has had a great record opening their season at home. Their first home game they've won like 10 years in a row. Seahawks like 1-10 in September on the road. So I thought it was less about the teams itself, but kind of the circumstances. That's where it was, and also because I think there were a lot of concerns about what that team showed in that Week 1 win against the Bengals. There were some things that kind of showed up. The Seahawks, they definitely stunned half the NFL world by winning on the road in that Steelers home opener. Russell Wilson was Offensive Player of the Week, even though it looks like he wasn't going to make it out of that first quarter. Lockett sets a personal high in catches in the game. Disley and DK both caught big touchdowns. Penny showing flashes of amazing speed and footwork to score with a lead blocker in Russell Wilson. But not always great in Seahawks land as LJ Collier suited up but didn't show much. Carson fumbled twice deep in Seahawks territory, giving easy scores to the Steelers. And once again, the defense gets caught flat-footed on another flea-flicker. This is the Hawkscast podcast brought to you by the Hawkscast Forum. But I think if anything, you'll take that win anytime. Doesn't matter what people say, you're happy for that win at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, if you're not, there's something wrong with you. Like, it wasn't perfect. It wasn't, amazing. But you walk out of there with a W. How can you be anything but happy about that?
Yeah, a win is a win is a win. On the road, it's even better. Against a team that's usually a powerhouse, it feels even better. I mean, people are discounting things essentially because it's an AFC team. It's not going to be a tiebreaker or anything like that. But you know what? It keeps pace. If we didn't get that win, we'd be tied for last place in the NFC West. So,
wouldn't we actually be in last place? We would actually be in last place because the Cardinals have a tie.
Do they have a tie?
They have a tie. They tied Detroit.
That's right. They did. So we would be in last place. So
right.
It's important. I mean, it sounds stupid, but like those games, it's only a 16-game season, so every game is crazy important.
Wait, did the Cardinals win this weekend?
They did win.
Son of a bitch.
Yeah. I mean, it's a
no. They lost. They lost this weekend. They're 0-1-1.
Oh, they are 0-1-1. Oh, my apologies.
Okay.
We would have maintained our third place status no matter what.
Oh, okay. Securely in third place. Got it.
But there'd be actual like ground to gain though, as opposed to just being a mathematical,
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's an important win. The NFC West looks like it's going to be pretty legit this year, and we got to be thankful for every win we get.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's actually kick us. That's a good segue into our first topic because while we do want to talk about the other teams in the NFC and also the NFC West, I do want to talk a little bit more about that game. And I want to talk about topic number one, Ross. Has the addition of DK and Jadeveon overshadowed other players on the field? And I think this is a different answer per player, but how has this addition, these two players to this team, one via trade and one via the draft, how has it impacted other people on the field?
I mean, in a sense, it's all attention's on them and it's all we talk about. But to this point, I almost feel like it's kind of warranted. Like, outside of DK and Lockett, only like 3 targets to other wide receivers. Jerron Brown, who was like, they're like, oh, well, we underutilized him last year. This year we're gonna, pump that dude up. That dude's had no targets. On defense, on the defensive line, like Collier played, but you barely noticed him out there. I mean, Poona Ford, he's gonna get some attention, but he was out. He might be out this week as well. I don't know, like it has overshadowed people, but you almost say kind of justifiably. I mean, like DK has been the storyline of the offense, except for like how hyper efficient Russell's been, and maybe how slightly underutilized Lockett's been up to this point. I mean, it's really early; it's 2 games, but I don't know. Yeah, it has, but there's not much to talk about on the team. Like the linebackers are making the plays, and they got some press in the preseason. That's our strongest group. I don't think anybody really wants to talk about the secondary because it's not pretty. So yeah, it's definitely overshadowing other players, but again, I think it's kind of justifiable. If you want to not be overshadowed, then step out of the shadow, and nobody's done it yet. You can argue some of the other rookie wide receivers haven't had the opportunity to, but I mean, there's opportunities on the defensive line to be the guy, and we've talked about Quinton Jefferson's first game as well, but that dude disappeared the second game, so. I don't know. Again, you want to stop somebody from crushing you in an overwhelming defeat and scoring garbage time points against you, then just stop them. You want to stop out. You don't want somebody to overshadow you, then step out of their shadow and make a play. That's how I feel.
I feel like, if anything, Jadeveon has given some other guys a chance to shine. Obviously, Jefferson being the prime example in week 1. I think he's done more than I could have even hoped that he'd be able to do here, and that's just be disruptive. He hasn't gotten any real numbers yet. He's batting down passes, that sort of thing. But what he's doing is he's taking the attention off of some of the other guys from the other team and giving other guys opportunity to get in there and make plays. And I think that this defensive line has benefited significantly just from his presence. And I think once this line gets back and fully healthy, that's when it's going to be most apparent. If we got, Ziggy and Clowney lining up opposite each other with what should be a fairly formidable rotation at tackle, that defensive line looks really scary. And I think that's the point. If we can get all those guys healthy, that's the point where we're going to start to see some of those sack numbers and tackles for loss numbers really pile up. And I think a lot of it's going to be due to, in part, to Jadeveon Clowney. So not so much overshadowing other players, but actually giving them an opportunity to shine. DK, I don't know, our offense is so there's only so much to go around in this offense. And DK has looked pretty fantastic in his limited opportunities. But like you said, Lockett, 10 catches, that's the most he's ever had in a game. So I don't feel like necessarily anybody's being overshadowed on offense, but I think there's opportunity there for a similar kind of effect. Once people have to respect DK, it's going to open up opportunities for Lockett. And we saw Malik Turner kind of make the most of his couple of opportunities. And Disley, obviously, a significant part of this passing offense. So I don't see necessarily so much overshadowing as much as actually helping to give opportunities to other guys.
I think you guys both bring kind of a good point in the fact that in order to be overshadowed, there has to be someone that's performing at a significant amount that is worthy of attention, but we're not really seeing that. DK is getting all the love because he's making big plays. Tyler Lockett had the big go-ahead touchdown in the Cincy game, and he had 10 catches in this past game. But on 3rd and 3 from 30-plus yards out, Russ went to DK on a one-on-one matchup, and even though he bobbled the ball initially, he still got the ball. He put 2 feet in bound. He looked like a vet, made the catch a little bit harder than he had to. But every other catch looked clean. It was like on point. His range to grab the ball. That first catch that he had from Russell Wilson, it was like that. They call it the back shoulder throw, where they're throwing kind of like to the left of the receiver, and he's kind of turning around, but he had to go low for it, and he picked this ball like it was no big thing. That's that catch radius. So to your point, you guys both say like there's no one necessarily worth mentioning, so you're not really overshadowing. And I think maybe that's
overstated that because there's like thinking about it, like it might be a bigger deal than has been made out of it. The fact that Disley came in and like scored 2 touchdowns like he was never injured, like so reminiscent of like his first game ever last season, and then he was injured by game 4 he was injured. Now he's come back and like making plays. I think maybe he's getting a little bit lost in the mix, but I think it's not just DK or whatever. I think it might be a little bit that people might take a while to sort of buy into it. Like, that seems like fluky or too good to be true. But if Disley keeps like playing, I think by midseason we'll be talking about him a lot.
Yeah, and the way that I think about it, a lot of it has to do with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is on fire. He has set he's had his best first 2 games in his career with 113 and 130 something passer rating in his first 2 games. He's playing amazingly, and I think what's happening is Will Disley, DK, Tyler Lockett, and Malik in the last game, they all took huge advantage of the opportunities they got, and they made it look kind of easy. I think that's the thing that surprised me most about DK is outside of that bobble on the touchdown, he's made all of those catches look like I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm a seasoned vet. Like nothing is new to me. You saw that 3rd and short that he converted against Cincy where, Russ kind of ran to the line of scrimmage and just kind of lofted it and he perfectly grabbed it and there was 2 defenders coming at him. I don't know if you expect rookies to make that play, and I think that's what's kind of happening is I feel that DK is playing above expectations, and you hope that he can sustain it. I have been really excited about him. We talked about it last week. And with Jadeveon, it's more of, for the most part, except for the secondary, the defense is doing what you expect it to. From the linebackers, from the defensive line, even though we're not seeing sack numbers, we see DK is disrupting a lot. I mean, Ben Roethlisberger, for all of his faults as a person and limitations as a quarterback, he still knows how to move around in a pocket. And he got flushed multiple times. And a lot of times, there was a defender ready to bat that ball away. So I'm hoping that we see more players on the defense kind of step up and take advantage. And I think once we get healthier, like you were saying, Zeb, it could be really scary because this is not the highest performing offense or defense that I think we've seen. It's been really efficient. It's been lucky to some degree, but I think if anything, DK and Jadeveon are just playing at a high level. People aren't catching up, and they're not necessarily worth comparing to in that performance regard.
Yep,
I agree.
If you had one person that you would like to see step up, who is it, whether it's on the defensive or on the offensive side?
Bradley McDougall. Like, if anybody's going to be the glue in the background of like the defensive backfield, it's got to be him, but it doesn't look particularly right this season.
I don't know. That interception he had was pretty nice.
Yeah, but I mean, other than that, I don't know. He doesn't seem like he's taking the right angles. He's not. I don't know. Like, you expect him to be sort of. Previously, when he was like the backup to both safety spots, and it felt really good because he had like this borderline Pro Bowl kind of guy backing up both of your Hall of Famer guys. It was awesome. Now he's got a chance to be the guy, the most proven guy back there, and I've been mildly disappointed. Although it's kind of always been his thing. He's like always been sort of really, really solid. I want a safety that's like a true playmaker, I guess. I miss that.
It's quite a steep downfall going from Earl and Cam to Tetrick, Delano, Hill, and Bradley.
Oh, you ain't
That's
kidding.
Leno. This is 2019,
sorry.
not 2018.
Sorry, Leno. You are a starter, I guess. I should give you that respect.
Dez been dropped. It's just Leno.
All right. Well, final thoughts on DK and Jadeveon and kind of the impact they're making.
I don't know that I've been as excited for individual players over the last couple of 2-3 seasons, like I am for these two guys. It definitely feels a little bit more like it did with the Legion of Boom and Marshawn Lynch and those guys in there. So they can build off of that. I think we'll be in pretty good.
It's an interesting point because most Seahawks, even like the offensive stars up to now, they sort of grew into stars. Like even like Marshawn Lynch, when they traded for him, I didn't think like he was gonna be like amazing. I thought he was gonna, he was pretty good at Buffalo. He wasn't like a amazing guy, but he got here and everything fit for him, and so like he kind of won me over. Or everybody, the wide receivers that we've had that turned out to be stars, they didn't start out that way. I mean, like their rookie season, you didn't go, oh my god, that guy's dominating. It wasn't like that, right?
Right.
They grew into it. But like this is like it's been a long time. I feel like almost since like the 90s, where like a guy comes in on offense and from day one you're like, God, that guy could dominate. That guy could dominate even his rookie season and just come in as a star, and like living up to it. Where the last time we made we traded even for people, but I didn't believe it. Like even when we traded for Percy Harvin, I never thought it was going to make sense.
Right.
I never thought that Jimmy Graham was going to be a star like the same way in Seattle. I never did. But like DK,
I would say Russ. Russ is that rookie that came in and like flashed, but it wasn't until like the last half of the year.
But I wasn't a believer at first. I was like, why are they starting that guy? What was his name? The guy they were supposed to start.
The guy from Green Bay, Matt Flynn.
I was like, Matt Flynn has thrown for like 7 touchdowns in a game, which is only like 4 people in like NFL history have done. Why is it not that guy? I was not a believer of Russ early.
All right.
I was doubting Pete Carroll up and down when he was like, why we? Okay, I get the TJ Husmann-Jod is not going to be our starting wide receiver, but why are you cutting him just to pay him $7 million anyway? If you're going to pay him, I'm sure he could be the number 5. I'm like, what are we doing this? I did not understand the Pete Carroll system early on at all. I own that.
All right. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the Pete Carroll system. So this is topic number 2. Zeb, is the Seahawks' current winning streak sustainable against other NFC teams? So kind of to your point, Ross, this is the Pete and John model. This is the Pete Carroll 100-win style of offense and defense. Is what we've seen through 2 games and what we can expect for the rest of this year. Is that sustainable, starting with this game against a quarterback-less Saints team, Zeb?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think this is, like we've talked about before, this is kind of the Seahawks style of football. This is absolutely sustainable. And just looking, I don't want to get too far ahead because you never know what's going to happen later in the year, but just looking at the next 2 games, for example, the Saints and the Cardinals, suddenly that's not such a scary looking set of teams to play. And you kind of have the feeling, or at least a pretty good feeling that you could be going into week 5 against the Rams at potentially 4-0. Obviously, don't want to, jump that far ahead because, like I said, you never know what could happen. But, and then you look from that point on down the list, our next NFC opponents are the Falcons, the Buccaneers. At that point, that point in the season, about midway through, I'd like to think that these Seahawks that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, yeah, they should be able to sustain it and get those wins at that point in the season. Things get a little tougher later, and it looks like the 49ers may, in fact, be back. So those games suddenly become tougher than they have been. But other than that, the Eagles, the Vikings, the Panthers, these are all beatable teams. And I think that the Seahawks style football that we've become accustomed to here over the last few seasons, I think those are exactly the kind of teams that you're going to be able to beat, maybe by, only a handful of points, which has been the way it's been so far. But yeah, I think they can get wins against all those teams.
Ross, what about you? You think this is sustainable? I mean, we're talking about a 1-point and a 2-point win. We're going to win by 3 points against New Orleans because that's just the way our season's going to go.
Like, if this was baseball, you'd be worried because if you're only getting a small differential, it seems to matter. And it sometimes does in football, but I think in the NFL, most of the time it's just, did you get the win or not? Because it's a much more complicated game, which kind of leads you into the analytics discussion. And this is where it gets kind of ironic to me. It's the analytical people, or like the pseudo analytics people who think that Pete Carroll's system is antiquated, doesn't work, it shouldn't work, and so on and so forth. When you get down to what it's meant to be, what analytics is supposed to tell you and what it's supposed to teach you, it teaches you that Seahawks are actually by far the most, Moneyball type team. They spend the money in the areas that make the most sense. They get the players that are defective looking, and so they get them for cheaper and they play better because they put them in a position to win. There's nothing in Seattle that would ever indicate that it's not sustainable. We've done sustaining it for 10 years. I think looking at the bigger picture, I think we're going to one day, I think we appreciate it now, but I think 15 years or 10 years from now, people are going to understand and appreciate what Pete Carroll and John Schneider have done more. Because I think they're playing, they're not at the Belichick level. Belichick seems to be in the Super Bowl every year. And that's hard, obviously. But his philosophy is maybe not reproducible, right? Whereas I think that people are eventually going to take a lot of lessons away from Pete Carroll and John Schneider because it's a sustainable system. They've got their plan in place. You have to be really smart to get it. So I don't always understand why they're doing it until it's too late. But yeah, it's sustainable. We've got games coming up that are very, very, very winnable. And I think the Seahawks, having never, they've lost, 3 games in 10 years by more than 10 points or something. Their system makes every game competitive.
Right.
Sometimes the ones that shouldn't be in our favor, more competitive for the team. But there's never a team, we're never outclassed. Even in 2011, when they first took over, we had no talent on the team. They were never actually outclassed because there was scheme and again, the coaching and the positioning, putting people in play positions to win, and again, moneyballing it. If you're going to spend all your money on pass rushers and shut down corners, cool. You know what? We're just going to spend $2 million on a left guard who's only a road grader, and you stop him with your $20 million pass rusher who's a finesse dude. Go ahead, try, and you're not gonna. You're going to spend $15 million on your left cornerback who's designed to shut down people like Julio Jones. Cool. You know what? We're going to get a 5'10" undrafted dude from Stanford, and he's going to run like routes out of the corner, out of the slot. And you're going to have nothing to stop that with because that's not the defense you've built. You're built to stop Julio Jones. And we'll do that all day long. And we're going to get to the Super Bowl on a $6 million offense.
Yeah.
And on defense, you know what? Fine, you're going to throw a million things out there. This year, we're going to put our base defense out there. We're going to occupy the middle of the field, where you want to run your crossing routes with 3 Pro Bowl linebackers and see where that gets you. And you'll be able to complete them under route 5-yard stuff. But can you do that 30 times in a row without throwing an interception or maybe fumbling? Don't think so.
And to that point, I want to interrupt you because I apologize. But that point, I actually want to bring up because Ross, that's what was killing Ben Roethlisberger. He was not willing to take those 5-yard underneath routes, underneath catches. He wanted to go deep. He wanted to go big, and Seahawks covered that. And he basically ended up getting frustrated. He was obviously injured. Now that we know, we thought he was just faking it, but that's what happened. That's what they're hoping to do. It's like we're hoping that we can outpatient you. We hope that we can make it so that your quarterback gets impatient and throws a desperation throw, and tired of taking 3 and 5 yard catches.
The thing is, it's that, and that's why it is a very, very good system. And that's why it gets frustrating to me that people do their analysis and don't see it because, yeah, either you challenge them, you make it so they get impatient, they take the deep shots against your people, and you're waiting for that, or they do just throw the underneath stuff, and we give up tons and tons and tons of yards, but not tons and tons and tons of points, because what happens is statistically, you could take the 80% of stuff time, but then there's a 20% chance it's going to fail, and that multiplies and multiplies and multiplies, and eventually, if you're going to run 40 offensive plays that are all going to be passes of 5 yards, something bad along the way is going to happen. You're going to get a strip sack, you're going to get a fumble, you're going to get an interception, you're just going to get, by chance, you're going to get 2 incompletions in a row, which leads to the 4th down. Statistically, it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But people don't see it. That's great because it works out for us. Although, I mean, the Seahawks defense has spread, obviously, which is, another sign that people do recognize. The people in the business recognize it works.
Right. And I think that's kind of why this question is kind of maybe misleading to longtime fans that have really bought into the Pete Carroll system. And it's not that the current model for Seahawks winning is sustainable. It is that it's not sexy. It's not attractive. It's not what analysts want to talk about because it's a base defense giving you a 3 to 5 underneath catch in hopes that you can't convert 90% of your catches all the way down the field and inch your way across for a score. It's not fun. It's not sexy, and that's kind of what it is. Like, no one wants to talk about how like this is the most boring vanilla thing, and yet it's keeping him in game for 10 years strong. I mean, Pete Carroll's won way more games than he's lost with this model, with a bevy of different players running that offense and defense, throughout his years. So both of you, I think, are totally spot on. And I think the question that a lot of fans, and to your point, Ross, about kind of that Seahawks Twitter analysis is, it's not so much about are they maximizing things, but are they doing things that are fun and sexy and make for great coverage? Like being able to show, like no one would want to watch a defensive series where they basically let the Steelers complete, 7 out of 14 passes, but the Steelers got 3 first downs, but ended up punting because they were fourth and 2, right?
Right. But that's what it's designed to do. I mean, like early on, when people like thought, "Wow, Seattle's playing cover 3, we're gonna throw all day on them, like long passes." But after a couple of years of that, Richard Sherman collecting like 8 interceptions a year, people are like, "Oh, that's not how you attack it." So we found the weak spot. We'll attack it underneath, and then you find out that's sort of like a trap. It's like, I mean, like the phrase they used 2 weeks ago. It's like a rope-a-dope. You get sucked into thinking you're being successful because you're throwing 40 passes and completing 30 of them, but you're completing 30 passes for 150 yards,
right,
for 200 yards, and it's gotten you back. You move between the 20s a lot. I mean, even again, we talked this before. Even in the Super Bowl that they crushed Denver, Peyton Manning set like a record for completions
and had 8 points to show for it.
Yeah, I mean, cool. I mean, it's funny because it's not even just Seahawks Twitter, but I mean, like I saw after the first game, like ESPN site and NFL.com had articles on like, like their quarterback that first game threw for 400 yards or something, and but is Seahawks, like you wrote, are the Seahawks sustainable if they're going to give up that many yards? It's like that's what the system's designed to do.
That's the question that people are asking, but they don't know the appropriate answer for that question. That's really what it comes down to, right?
Yep. If you need 4, you'll get 4, but if you need 6, you'll get 4.
Yeah. All right.
Bobby's right there.
Well, let's move on. We got a couple more things we want to talk about. So let's go to topic number 3. Quick shout out to Birdfinger and to Boy Scout for lurking and checking us out. Thanks, guys, for checking us out live. So Ross, this is a topic that we had talked about. We'd actually talked about it offline. But topic number 3, the Hawkscast Corner. What keeps your Seahawks passion burning bright?
I mean, I brought this topic up because there was the massive earthquake this year in Seahawks fandom. Well, for some of us, for me, my biggest connection has been for many, many years now, the Brock and Sock show, 7:10 a.m., 7 o'clock in the morning. That's like been my thing. I mean, I love talking with fans. The biggest website I used to post on, I don't post it anymore. We've got a little small community now, and that helps as well, of course. And you guys are. Well, obviously, we've got a podcast that keeps it going. And even when we're not podcasting, obviously, us and Birdfinger exchange banter a lot. But my sort of like mainstream, like what's really going on and what do I really believe kind of stuff about them has always come through Brock and Sock. And that's going to go away now. They keep saying it's not going away because it's becoming a once a week on Wednesday podcast, which... it's like when you graduate high school and you tell your friends you're still going to be best friends, but you're not, because you know what? You're not going to see each other 5 hours a day every day. You can still be friends, but you have to actually make the time to go see him, right? I can't just like sit in front of my computer at 11 o'clock. I should point out the time difference. For me, Brock and Sox starts at 11 o'clock at night and it goes to 2 a.m., which is perfect. Perfect because those hours I'm awake and everybody else is asleep and it's just my time. And I don't have to make time. It's just automatically there every day. I turn it on and they're there. And now I'm going to have to make time to go see them. And it's like graduating high school. You're not going to see those guys all the time. And I feel a little sad. I'm really proud of them because that means they're both doing well in their careers. And it's always cool to see people get success, right? But that's been one of the things that kind of keeps me always connected. And I'm a little bit worried about it now. Because I can listen to the other shows even on the same channel. I like that non-shock jock radio kind of culture they have at that station. But I can't listen to John Clayton for 3 hours because that dude drives he does my head in after a while. And I like Jake Heaps, but he's got to develop some radio personality. And what's G Scott?
G Scott he's not really with 710 so much. He kind of fills in mostly.
He had a show for a while with John Clayton, and I don't know who decided that pairing because that was awful. I'm not a big G Scott fan. I like his information, but I don't like his analogies, especially bug me. They're so forced. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, that's the radio. The radio culture around that station really, really kept me connected to Seahawksdom. I think they've always done a really good job of being objective, but still fans. I thought Sulk added so much to sports culture in Seattle that people in Seattle don't really appreciate. Seeing giving them just a little taste of what it's like in that. Seattle sports media seems to be so pro anything that happens in their city. It's not very critical. The East Coast can be overly critical, and a lot of places are. But so he's kind of found a happy medium eventually. But he's not just a rah guy, and he's a little bit more edgy. I like that. Anyway, that's what connects connected.
I don't know. Would you say that the loss of the show going to a podcast, what's going to happen to your fandom in that, for you, 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. hour? What's going to happen, you think?
I don't know. There's a real chance I'm going to be slightly less informed as a fan because I don't think I will feel compelled to listen to it. I can't say I'm there literally every day, but probably 4 days a week out of 5 I listen to it during the football season anyway. I think I'll end up being slightly less informed because I don't know, depending on what it gets replaced with, I worry that I won't listen as much. I've just in the past 3 weeks I've really, really stopped getting my Seahawks news off of Twitter because oh my god, people,
you got to set up the filters on that.
Yeah, and increasingly sports media, I don't blame the media, I blame the people. I don't want to be these people's anti-media because the media is private enterprise. They give you what you want. If the people want sensationalized stuff, then that's what you're going to get. If you refuse to read garbage and only want high quality reporting, that's all you'll get. But if we reward bad media, then we get bad media. You get the media and you get the government you deserve. There's my soapbox for the day.
Just slide that one in real quick.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm a little bit worried that I'm going to be slightly less informed. And even if I am listening to as much, I worry that I'm not going to be quite as informed because those guys they're very, very different, obviously, but they both come from different angles that are very intelligent. I think Salk is probably a little smarter than Brock, but Brock's played the game, so he's got the unique perspective. But also what I like about Brock is he doesn't constantly ride you about that. I don't like ex-athletes who are reporters and just constantly bring up everything they ever did and still talk as if they're in the huddle. You're talking to normal people now. That's you got to change your perspective. And when you talk to a police officer about law, if the fact that you respect the opinion more, if he doesn't necessarily always be if you knew what I knew kind of thing, right? That's not a valid argument, and I like that about them. So anyway, I just feel like I'm gonna get less quality news. I worry that I'm gonna get volume less, quality less. We'll see.
All right. Zeb, what about you? What keeps your Seahawks passion burning bright? Obviously, it's the Hawks Cast podcast. If anything, that's the torch carrying the flame. But what's second to the Hawks Cast podcast? It's the forum. I got it. The forum is number 2. What's number 3?
I honestly don't know. I don't know if this is. I don't think I can even explain it. It's just, I think maybe the thing that keeps me in it is just my attachment to the history of it all. And I think about, like, I'm doing when I'm talking about the Seahawks or watching the Seahawks or reading about the Seahawks, I'm like, this is the same thing that I was into 30 years ago. And it's the same thing that I was excited about 30 years ago. And maybe for some reason that, because I feel like I could be in, like, never speak to another human being or have access to anything, and if I knew the Seahawks were playing on Sunday, I'd be excited about it and I'd tune in and I'd watch it. But at the same time, having people to talk to about it, having websites like Hawkscast and even Seahawks.net and other close friends who are also a similar level of fan, someone who gets equally as excited about it, having those kind of people around, being able to talk to you guys on a regular basis, obviously just fuels the interest. So I don't listen to a lot of radio shows. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't have much specific go-tos when it comes to hearing or reading or seeing what's going on in Seahawks land. So having close friends and acquaintances that are also excited about it probably helps a lot. But other than that, I don't know, I just feel like it's there, it's in me. I don't think I could change it if I wanted to.
It's in that DNA.
Yep.
Yeah, I think this is it's an interesting question because Ross comes at it from a totally different angle. It's coming about Seahawks is what helps him keep connected to maybe like an aspect of his life, maybe for him because he lives overseas, and Brock and Salk really kind of fill that need. For Zab, it's just like it's in my DNA. For me, it's kind of a mixture of both of that. I think a lot of it is, I think a core part of who I am is definitely being a fan of this particular team more so than any other team. But also it's like part of the podcast, part of the forum, part of everything I do related to Seahawks is, for me, it's trying to build like a structure. It's trying to say like, okay, what do I think about this? And then trying to find out, can I defend this? Is this what I really think? Like, and trying to explore that. So talking to other people, talking to you guys, going on Twitter, going to other places and talking to people about ideas and strategy and philosophy and all that kind of stuff. For me, it's kind of like a mental exercise. And because I love football so much, I love the idea of football, I love playing football, flag football. Shout out to Jameson. It just kind of like swells and builds and builds. But there's definitely like when the Seahawks aren't on TV, when there's no football to be played, it definitely like falls to the wayside, and it's like, okay, well, let's do something else until football is back. But yeah, just that new season, it's always something new, it's always something exciting, and I think this particular era, this coaching, this quarterback era that we're seeing right now has done nothing but just continue to fill that passion, and like it's overflowing sometimes. So I think that's what keeps me burning bright with that Seahawks love.
Yeah, that sounds about right to me.
Yeah. All right. Is there anything that could come in front of your Seahawks passion? Is anything that said, oh, you know what, I gotta pump the brakes for an hour for a little bit because I gotta do this? Is there a lot that you feel could really do that for either of you guys?
I mean, I've missed games over the years occasionally, or parts of games because I had other stuff to do. But I don't know what anything could actually change how much it matters to me or how much I care about it. Like if I'm missing part of a game, I'm thinking about it the whole time and I'm checking in as best I can. So I don't know, like, having a baby, getting married, those kind of things obviously should probably come before your sports fandom. But
probably.
I mean, it's a probably in italics, probably. But yeah, I don't know. Like if something crazy happened and all of a sudden there was a reason to be against specifically the Seahawks organization, if they started doing something super foul or some kind of like
They
reason.
moved to LA.
Ooh,
Well,
ooh.
yeah. I mean, something like I can't even promise that I wouldn't follow him to a different city if that's what happened. I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's just it's important. Whether it shouldn't be important, but it's important, and I don't know. That hasn't changed in 30 years. I don't expect it to change in the next 30.
Agreed. Ross?
I think like when the Tyreek Hill thing came out, I think something related, something like that, at this stage of my life could threaten it. Like if the Seahawks just went on a rampage of just signing people that we know were like unmitigated domestic abusers or rapists or whatever, right?
Right.
It would be hard for me. It would when I was younger. I don't know. When I was younger, I don't think I minded as much. I didn't care. I didn't pay attention. As I get older and different stage of your life, it started like the Tyreek Hill thing. I gotta say, like it has shook me a little bit, and I've noticed that maybe not to the Seahawks, but my loyalty to the NFL right now is probably at an all-time low. And when I say that for some perspective, like once upon a time when there was the USFL, I was like I hated it irrationally because it was like a rival to like the NFL. I was an NFL guy and I was a Seahawks guy, and anything that gets in the way of what I was loyal to, I intensely hated. I mean, to the point where early on, I've talked about this before. I used to be fans of more of individual players than the overall Seahawks sometimes. So, like when David Craig took Jim Zorn's job, man, I just wished the worst things on him. But I find myself. So the other one other thing I can think of is where the NFL keeps changing the rules and changing the games. Now, I'm not a guy who needs like a huge amount of like gratuitous violence in the game. I like, for example, the Seahawks, new style of tackling. We call it new. It's rugby tackling. I like the rugby tackling. I want that. I want a safer game, but I still want a fair game, and I don't want defense completely legislated out of the game. I think defense is an important part of the game. I don't think people, I know they're doing it because like points gets viewers and so on and so forth, but I don't think people, like I've talked about before in other subjects, people don't always understand what they like. If you just give them a pure offensive game, even though that's what it seemed and your data seemed to indicate that's what they wanted, I think at that point you'll have a lesser product and they actually eventually will turn away too much of a quote unquote good thing. So I've kind of opened my eyes up and kind of hoped for like a rival league that might play a little bit not old school, but like a lot football that's itself be like defensive minded at times.
I hear
Let the big hit be there. And like I feel to be honest, I feel I'd be attracted to that. I'm paying a little bit of attention to the XFL because of that, and because Jim Zorn's going to be the head coach and things like that. I've got my eye out, and I think that's actually like a warning sign to the Seahawks and to the NFL that I'm actually actively eyeing other stuff because I'm not quite, the new pass interference rules. I mean, and part of it's living abroad and like having to pay more attention to other sports because of my expat friends, but it's only football where I watch a play and then there's a penalty, and I watch a play and there's a penalty, and I watch a play and there's a penalty. Like this constant break from the action. Like you need some continuity.
Yeah, I hear you.
And I guess I've gone off on a tangent to the NFL, not the Seahawks, but anyway.
All right.
If I found out that Russell Wilson, Steve Largent, Matt Hasselbeck, Pete Carroll, and Paul Allen's family were all involved in like a sex trafficking ring, I might consider not being a Seahawks fan until all those people were removed from the situation.
I like the red lines that we're all willing to draw for theoretical purposes.
Yeah.
But let's talk about some actual theoreticals related to the Seahawks and the Saints. So, topic number 4. Zeb, has the hype around the Saints game died with Breeze? And can teams come back if they lose their QB? What are we gonna see? Sean Payton hasn't named a starter for the game as of today. They've stayed on the West Coast because they're playing the Rams at home and now they're traveling to Seattle. And we don't know what quarterback we're going to see, Teddy Bridgewater or the other guy, Hill. And
Taysom.
Yeah.
I kind of forgot that there was any particular hype behind the game against the Saints. I guess a game against the Saints in recent years always kind of feels hyped anyway. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Drew Brees hasn't had the most successful history against the Seahawks. So it's almost one of those things where I feel like maybe the whole switch up could potentially even be a benefit for them. Not, obviously Teddy Bridgewater and Taysom Hill combined, their best traits aren't Drew Brees on any given day, but you never know. We've played Brees fairly well. So I'm as hyped as I would be for this game if it was anybody else. So for me, there's no change in hype. It's the Seahawks playing on Sunday afternoon. It's my favorite thing in the world. Not much you could do to lessen the hype for it for me personally, but I don't know. I think if anything, it's more interesting. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do and how the Seahawks handle it.
Ross, what about you? You're going to be in town for this game, correct?
Yeah, I'll be at that game. 3:38, row X, seat 11. Come see me. I'll be there, and I feel a little cheated because I feel like it's going to hurt the Seahawks hype, right? Because it's going to be another win with an asterisk. Oh, you beat Steelers by just 2, and like Roethlisberger didn't play the second half. Is he good for 2 points? Oh, you beat the Saints, but Drew Brees wasn't playing. Oh, you beat the Cardinals, but it's a rookie quarterback. Like, we're going to get to like mid-season before people are going to start like believing. And that's okay, I guess. It doesn't really matter. I'm not in it for the pride, but I don't think it's going to matter. Like Zeb said, Brees hasn't had a lot of success against us. The Saints aren't really a road team, but they are one of those teams that you thought was going to go to the Super Bowl. You can overcome losing your quarterback, but it depends on the build of your team. I think Minnesota showed that a couple years ago, but the Saints are 100% built around Drew Brees and his arm. So, yeah. Although your question phrasing implies that Drew Brees died.
Well, we want to pour one out for Birdfinger because his fantasy team died with Breeze, so that's mostly what we're talking about. But yeah,
I mean, they're definitely in trouble. Teddy Bridgewater isn't a good fit for that system. We're not allowed to say this, but he's not really an NFL quarterback, right? He's more like a jack of all trades kind of dude.
Tebow.
Yeah, Tebow famously won a playoff game. And we'll never hear the end of that because like his supporters are going to hang on that forever. See, he could have won. He could have been a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm still super hyped for the game. I'm going to the game. It's still the Saints. It's still NFL. It's still like it's going to be awesome. But I think like the national interest and the national narrative and how much emphasis or how much value they're going to place in the game or what they think they can learn from the game is going to be massively. This is like one of those things, like the hypothetical, like if you beat up an old man and you're an up and coming boxer, like what are you gonna? If you lose to him, then you've lost everything. If you beat him up, you just beat up the old man, right?
Right.
If we lose to them, oh my god! And if we beat them, they don't have Breeze, so there's no upside as far as the national image of our team goes.
Right. You only lose if you lose. You win nothing if you win, other than it's on the record book.
Yeah,
right.
But you know what? Still going to be a 3-0, so woohoo!
Yeah, I'll take the win. And I think also to your point, I think the hype is mostly about the national media because the Seahawks really could care less. That's what Pete has instilled in his team, in his players, is that it doesn't matter who's on the schedule. The goal is to win. If they're going to trot out, 48 junior varsity players and an NFL team, like Pete's like, okay, well, that's the team we'll play. It doesn't matter how much we win by, but that's what we'll do. You're
talking about Miami.
I am talking about Miami. It's kind of upsetting that we don't get to play them this year because that would be fun.
It's not really fair. It's like when you're in the fantasy football league and like you play a guy week 1 and he played pretty well. By week 6 he drops out and everybody else gets the free win. Oh, come on.
Yeah, I mean,
everybody gets the free win against Miami this year.
I think the biggest point though, it's the idea of when you lose that marquee quarterback, what can you do to replace him? And I think that to a degree, I think that the Steelers are going to benefit a lot more than the Saints will. With Ben Roethlisberger going out, he's going to be replaced by a quarterback that's going to just purely run that system. He's not going to make different changes. He's not going to sacrifice the game plan because he's going to do what is intended. And I don't know if the Saints have a guy that can do that. So I think that's what's going to be interesting. But yeah, I mean, I'm not less excited.
I do want to say I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is a bad quarterback. I don't think he's really great for New Orleans. So I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah, Birdfinger.
Yeah, you might be right.
Birdfinger chimes in and says he thinks that Sean Payton and the Saints are going to call a much more extravagant game where they're going to do things that they definitely wouldn't do, and maybe that's part of the reason why he hasn't named a starter, because he doesn't want to give any kind of edge to Pete and the Seahawks, saying like, oh, if they don't know who our quarterback is, their scheme's going to be totally thrown off, and the Seahawks are going to come out in base defense again.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's that worked for other people? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's something to that, but I don't think it's going to matter. I mean, even whether he announced or he didn't announce, the Seahawks don't play a defense where they're going to be like, oh my God, we really, really got because of this or that. The Seahawks do their thing. It's your job to them.
Final thoughts about the Saints before we get into some predictions.
When do the Saints come rolling in?
They come marching in.
No, marching. Sorry.
The Saints go over there.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to some predictions then. And Zeb, let's have you go first. What's your final score for this game on Sunday, Saints versus Seahawks? The Saints are a 4.5 underdog.
Yeah, I'll say 31-25.
Ross, what you got in the bag? You're going to see this game live and see
31-13.
31-13? Okay.
Ooh, my dog.
You know,
I don't know how they're going to score, to be honest. I mean, they got Kamara, but that's it, right?
I think Seahawks, I think they're going to show a little slow, and my guess is it's going to be a lower scoring game than anticipated. It's going to be like 17-10. That's the final score, Seahawks.
That's fair.
Zeb, who's going to see more snaps at running back, Carson or Penny?
Carson.
Ross? That's a big sigh. I think we might have differing opinions here.
Man, Carson's killing me. I'm going to go with Penny. I think, for motivational reasons, they're not really, really hardcore getting on him, and they're not saying much in the press especially, but I think it's kind of bugging Pete Carroll, and I think Penny's they're going to claim it's off of, who's the hot hand and sets and plays they want to run, but I think Penny edges him out just barely this week.
Birdfinger giving the Seahawks a 28-24 edge, and he is saying Carson's going to get more snaps. I actually was going to say Carson because he's on my fantasy team and I'm starting, but Ross, I think you pointed out a really good thing. Pete did sneakily kind of shelve Carson for a game where everyone was wondering, where's Carson? Why isn't he running the ball? So I might go on a limb. I'm going to say Penny's going to get more snaps at running back this week. Zeb, who's going to get more targets at wide receiver? Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, or the field?
Tyler Lockett.
Ross with another big sigh.
Trying to figure this out. I feel like this is the first game that's going to happen where they kind of really just kind of go off with Met. I see 12 targets over there, 6 catches, 7 catches.
Wow. I'm going to say the field. I think that the Saints are going to be desperate for a win. They're going to try and do something. Birdfinger's with me. He's saying the field. I'm going to take my chances. I'm going to say the field. But Tyler and DK are going to get huge chunk yards, which means that they're not going to need those targets for it. Zeb, who's most likely going to score that first touchdown? Carson, Penny, Lockett, Metcalf, or Disley? We're not even giving the field a chance.
Carson.
Ross?
Disley?
Disley?
Disley's killing.
Birdfinger's got Metcalf. I think I'm going to go Metcalf too. I think Metcalf's going to have a low volume target, but he's going to have a bunch of big plays. I think that he's going to steam. It looks like he's looking for contact on a lot of these plays, and
you're thinking like 3 catches for like 142 yards.
Yeah, he's just going to bust one. He's going to get like a slant route and just like take it to the house. He's going to have the angle. That's what I'd love to see.
I would too.
Zeb, over under Beastquake references at 1.5.
Under 1.
Ross?
Under?
Under?
Yeah. I think, wow.
I think we're going to see 1.5 because I think it's going to be kind of a boring game. We're not going to count pre-game, but I think what's going to happen is it's going to be kind of that low-scoring game. Not a lot of action is going to happen, so they're going to need to fill time and kind of get like people interesting, so they're going to reference it a couple times. So I'm going to say over.
I think I'm going to change my answer to over, but not because I think my reasoning is slightly different. But I was a little surprised last week at how nostalgic like the coverage can be. I was really surprised how much they talked about like the 2005 Super Bowl. So maybe I'm underestimating how much people still want to talk about that. So I'm over. I'm over.
All
It's like 4 or 5 times.
Birdfinger's over too. Over under number of times videos of Breeze unable to grip a ball. Half. Over under.
Let's go over. Well, let's have one of them.
Yeah, it's definitely over. It's pretty compelling video. I wish it was high quality.
I'm Birdfinger's both. Everyone's saying over. I'm going to say under because I think what they're going to do is they're going to talk about it in the pregame and they're not going to talk about it in the game at all. They'll show him on the sideline, but actually, you know what? He's not even going to be on the sideline. He's not going to be there, so they're not going to show it. That's my prediction.
There's no way they can resist showing him like trying to pick up the ball and it just drops.
Yeah.
Gotta show it, man.
All right, final 2 predictions for the night. Zeb, is Pete going to challenge a pass interference call? Yes or no?
You damn right he is.
Ross?
He can't help himself. He has to. It's like a law now. I couldn't believe he won that challenge last week. Oh my gosh. Anyway, yeah, he'll do it.
Birdfinger's yes. I'm saying yes, and I think the reason is that Pete has figured out that this is the best call to challenge. Because it is still such a subjective thing, it's not clearly defined. There is going to be a referee that's going to say, like, you know what? By the letter of the law, that impacted the receiver's ability to catch the ball. We have to throw a flag on it. I think that's going to happen.
It also is like a weird one in that you get to choose your wording, and that plays into it so much. Now they're gonna have to totally scrap this rule because now you can say like, okay, we're challenging whether it was defensive pass interference, but you could instead turn around and say, no, that's not what we're challenging. We're challenging that there was offensive pass interference. Now they're looking for something completely different, right? Now you've got their eyes looking for the wide receiver's got his hands extended there. That's offensive OPI.
Right, and I think that's what Pete has done.
Choose your wording is interesting.
That's what Pete has done. He's figured out that this is such a almost dumb rule because we're trying to overcompensate for what happened in the NFC Championship game. That Pete is picking this to death and figuring out like where is the crack in the foundation, and that's what he's doing. So I'm saying yes. Zep, final prediction of the night: is Jason Myers going to get a field goal attempt? This guy's kicked one legitimate field goal in this season so far. He's missed another.
He wants the ball, and he's going to score.
Nobody wants to hear about your fantasy team, but you're going to hear about my fantasy team. I've got Jason Myers on a bunch of my goddamn teams because I thought the Seahawks going to like have this like pretty hot offense this year, but they keep scoring touchdowns. So, but he's going to get a couple of field goal attempts this time. Is the weather going to be bad? Is it going to rain?
I don't know what the weather's going to be like.
I think. Oh man, I gotta get him out of there. Maybe he's not. It's just gonna be touchdown for touchdown. How annoying a touchdown!
I'm gonna say yes. Jason Myers is gonna get one field goal attempt on my prediction. It's a 17-10 win. So Jason Myers is gonna get one issue of love, but Russ is just too damn efficient. He's gonna drive him for touchdowns every other way.
Now is it Russ or is it Dissly that's being efficient?
I think
because Disney's career percentage chance, like percentage of like catches that go for TDs, is pretty damn high, right?
Yeah, yep. I mean he's got 3 career touchdowns, I think, on like 10 catches.
I know he's got more. No, because he's got more. Because that very first game, he also had 2 touchdowns, didn't he? 2 out of 3. Last game was 2 out of 3.
Oh,
that dude's got like 5. That guy's got like 5 career touchdowns off of like 10 catches or something.
That's like pretty crazy.
All that guy does is score touchdowns.
Yeah, he's got 4 touchdowns on 14 receptions.
There you go. That's a pretty high percentage.
That's like 30% touchdown rate.
Yeah. So throw the ball 3 times, money.
Yeah, that's how Seahawks Twitter works. Well, he catches touchdowns at a 33% rate, so just throw him, and every third catch automatically has to be a touchdown.
That's how it works.
That's how math works.
Look at the numbers. Look at the. Why would you ever hand off the ball?
Advanced metrics.
So Ross is going to throw that stat out there. We'll see what bites he can get off of that. But that is our podcast for today, gentlemen. Do you have any shout-outs?
I have a huge shout out, and it's going to take me just a second, but this is a big one. Shout out to Chris Berman, Tom Jackson, and ESPN for bringing back NFL Primetime. I don't know if this is, we talked about with this just briefly during the week, but I don't know. This is a huge, huge deal for me. Like, this show was my NFL lifeblood growing up, and to have it back in with the same music, and Chris Berman and Tom Jackson sounding exactly how they sounded 20 years ago. It's beautiful. Shout out to all of them.
That sounds to me like that was your answer for topic number 3.
Well, this is the NFL specific, not Seahawks specific.
Okay.
Yeah, Birdfinger's saying the same thing. He says it's really cool to watch. I haven't checked it out yet, but I do love Primetime, so I can't wait to watch a couple episodes.
I have no way to watch it. Okay. I have a shout out this week, so get ready. Shout out to Hunter, my employee, who had his first kid this week.
Congratulations.
Congrats.
He's feeling a little overwhelmed, but I think he's gonna be an awesome dad, and good luck to him. Shout out, well done, man. Like, his wife had a 26-hour labor.
That sucks. Oh, yeah. That sucks.
26. Ugh. I was complaining about 10 seconds it took him to do my LASIK. All right.
Well, shout out to Zeb and Tross, as always. Thanks, guys, for being on the show. Shout out to Birdfinger and to Boy Scout for checking us out live. Check us out on Twitter at Seahawks Podcast and Seahawks Forum. Go to the Hawkscast Forum, get more information about us, the stuff we're talking about. We're talking about all kinds of stuff, so check it out. And looking forward to it. I'm not going to be here the next couple of weeks, but Zeb and Ross are going to be hosting the show, so looking forward to that. And go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.